在美国，财政部于6月提交国会的主要贸易伙伴宏观经济与外汇政策半年度报告里，虽未认定有任何贸易伙伴存在操纵汇率的行为，但是仍将台湾列入汇率操纵观察名单中。这是自2022年6月以来，台湾连续第7次的入列。与台湾同时被点名的，还包括中国、韩国、日本、新加坡、越南、德国、爱尔兰与瑞士。虽然台湾屡次被列入观察名单，但美国始终未有制裁。可是近期台湾还是因为汇率问题成为国际媒体关注的焦点。
And this is a story which is being talked about in exactly those markets, currency and fixed income, in a big way, but actually has got little or no attention in equity markets, not just here but around the world. What has happened in Taiwan over the last 2 days is not normal. Actually, it's far from normal. The Taiwan dollar is surged 10% plus in just 2 trading sessions, a currency, right? This isn't just a currency move. Is it a signal? And that's the question that I'm asking here. Now, these are the moves that I'm talking about with regards to the currency, the Taiwanese dollar. It's pulled off a historic surge, up 5% last Friday, another 5% yesterday. So a 10% surge against the USD in 2 trading sessions. It's up a stunning 14% since the US dollar, since the end of March. Mind you, we have not seen this kind of currency move, not even during the wild old days of the Asian financial crisis.
We actually had an update on Friday from TSMC and another chip maker outlining exactly the hit to their operating margins. For every 1 percentage point move in the Taiwanese dollar, their operating margin is shaven off by nearly half a percentage point. So you multiply that by 7. It is not good news for TSMC and those chip makers. That is another question why we're standing around kind of waiting and asking the question why the central bank isn't stepping in to help their local exporters.
Valerie mentioned, the intervention of the Taiwanese central bank and then the lack of. What do you make of the intervention side of this?
Nobody really knows why Taiwan Central Bank has been less interventionist this past few days than is usually the case, where it smooths those moves in currency markets. And it may well be to do with the trade talks. It may well be that this is just a sensitive time, and probably being seen to weaken your currency would be undesirable in those moments. But what we are seeing is that the big moves and the dislocations that we're getting across the FX markets are forcing central banks to think at least about what's going on. And for currency that's pegged against the dollar, like the Hong Kong dollar, all of a sudden you've got to start absorbing flows in order to contain those rates as well.
Yep, and the big jump in the Taiwanese dollar is worrying because Taiwan is an export economy, and its currency strength could hurt its competitiveness as well. And that brings us to our big number of the day, $1.7 trillion. That's an estimate of Taiwan's overseas assets, including U.S. treasuries and corporate debt held by Taiwan's life insurance companies. So everyone is talking about the U.S. dollar weakness. And of course, Taiwan dollar really put on some big moves over the last couple of sessions or so. And then people are watching what Taiwan's life insurers are going to do next. Because the chatter on the street is that they were so not hedged for this, for their currency exposure, that they might be actually unloading some of the money that they held in foreign bonds. So this, in turn, could impact some of the American companies that really needed some borrowing from these Taiwanese life insurers as well.
Yeah, Sherry, I did a little bit of digging for these big Taiwanese life insurers, right? About a quarter, that's about 26% of their unhedged liabilities are in U.S. treasuries, right? So chances are, because they're facing losses on those holdings, they were forced to sell at least some of those U.S. treasuries. And for that matter, the central bank in Taiwan, as well as the TWD, surged. And take a look at the reaction, the opposite side, right? When you sell USTs, what happens? Yields go up. So take a look at the 10 now. We are up at about 431 last I checked. So that's a pickup, and probably indicative of what's going on starting in Taiwan.
在过去1个月，新台币汇率出现罕见剧烈波动，还创下自1988年以来最大单日涨幅9.53角，让市场一片哗然。台湾一向以汇率稳定闻名，这样的剧烈变动到底发生了什么事？ 多数分析认为，这波升值与美元疲软、出口商积极结汇以及寿险公司对美元部位的避险操作密切相关。但台湾央行不排除市场上有秃鹰炒作汇市的可能。台湾寿险业是亚洲最大的美国债券持有者之一，长期暴露在未对冲的美元风险下，近期汇率剧烈波动，已造成账面损失扩大，成为最大受灾户。根据报道，过去1个月新台币对美元升值超过8%，迫使寿险业者面对高达7800亿美元海外资产账面缩水的压力。为协助业者应对近期新台币飙升导致海外资产出现巨额账面损失，金管会宣布允许使用6个月平均汇率来计算半年报中的风险资本。尽管如此，台湾寿险业今年前4月的货币损失仍高达约40亿美元，损失持续扩大。另一方面，5月台湾出口表现亮眼，对美出口占比重回30%，创下自1992年以来新高，景气回暖迹象明显。然而，对出口导向的台湾产业来说，台币升值却像一把匕首插进胸口。据央行估算，台币每升值1元，出口厂商获利就会被压缩2到3个百分点。部分外销业者坦言，现在不是在赚钱，而是在抢钱。美元计价的营收被汇损吞噬，有的业者甚至来不及等市场波动，一收到美元货款就赶紧换成台币。那么，台币升值究竟是好消息还是坏消息？对出口业者而言，答案非常明确。台币升值代表出口商品变贵，利润变薄，美元营收换回台币立刻缩水，不换又面临进一步升值风险。这场看似荣景的背后，是许多企业难以喘息的现实压力。
Trump has previously complained about other countries keeping their currencies lowered artificially to gain a trade advantage. He advocated for a weaker US dollar to boost America's competitiveness. The dollar has fallen in recent weeks, however, the currency is fast losing its safe haven status in the current sell American assets trend.
So I would say the gap between the US and the rest of the world has been extremely wide for the last 5 years. I wouldn't say it has been completely bridged to zero, but the gap is definitely meaningfully shrinking enough from both sides. The US, thanks to its own policies, but the one silver lining from all of this is that it's actually forcing other countries to introspect. They're now looking at more fiscal spending domestically. They're actually also looking at cutting intra-regional trade, trade barriers. They're also talking amongst each other to, have stronger intra-regional trading relationships. So that all is actually making the rest of the world more investable. I wouldn't say that the US has completely, given up its crown position. But I would definitely say that a lot more investable places are now coming up to the surface where they had been very underground for the last 5 years.
But the whole idea and what we kept hearing from a lot of folks was that it's not the case of the U.S. being uninvestable.
So for the last 5 years, the U.S. has been relying on the kindness of strangers because all the global portfolio managers and the savers of the world in Europe and Asia, they all had been piling money into the U.S. You had the chase for carry, you had the commodity shock where the US was energy independent, and you had an exceptionally strong and growing US. So all the three factors which were driving investment in global markets resided in the US with the US. So everything was a US investment. US equity investment has ballooned. In fact, foreigner investment holding of US equities as a share of market cap has also been going higher. That also actually led to a very strong and overvalued dollar. So the overvalued dollar went hand in hand with very strong portfolio investment into the US, and that's why both of them are being questioned at the same time. The dollar as a diversifier, as a safe haven, we see those correlations are breaking down. The dollar actually, on some days, I actually think is trading a lot more like an emerging market than it is like a safe haven, unfortunately.
So wait a minute. So net, is this better for the global investment environment in the long term? Is this not so great for the U.S. investment market? Is it also all the result of President Trump?
I think net, it's a healthy recalibration of markets. Like the last 5 years, we've all come to points where we're like, is U.S. markets, are they overvalued? Are they bubbled up? Are valuations expensive? I think this was a very healthy recalibration that was needed.
就在美元持续走弱，新台币对美元汇率来到3年多来高点之际，地球另一端却再度爆发冲突。 6月初，以色列与伊朗意外开战，推升油价，激发避险情绪。照理说，这类地缘政治风险通常会促使资金回流美元，但这回情况却有些耐人寻味。美元不仅没有明显转强，反而维持着缓步走贬的趋势。早在5月，台币突然急升之际，市场曾盛传这与台美贸易谈判有关，甚至有人怀疑汇率会不会成了谈判的一部分。对此，台湾央行曾严正否认。然而，随着中东再起战火，金融市场多线混乱，美元依旧疲弱，让人不禁揣想，在让美元贬值的这场精密布局中，是否正上演着一个完美的桥段？
It is the largest underweight right now in 20 years. The dollar's lost 10% of its value since President Trump took office.
Right.
Now, you can go one of two ways on that. You could say, well, that's good for multinationals like you did. Or you could look at it and say, well, there's a direct line of evidence to a lackluster belief in the American exceptionalism trade. You guys are nodding your head like
yeah,
you agree with that.
I think there's.
Wait a second. Let me answer your question on the whole messing up industries. In the face of this happening, we aren't messing up industries.
Well, how do you know that?
Because earnings just grew 12% last quarter. How about the whole financial services industry? Every single bank reiterated guidance. Not one of them lowered, and that is really quite impressive because they're at the forefront of what's going on the tariff side.
Now, the dollar thing is a legit part of the story. Falling dollar may be good for multinationals because it traditionally has been, but if you think it's falling for the wrong reason, then you sit back and you take a look at the whole big picture of where we are.
当川普的对等关税90天暂停期即将走完，当全球目光被战场牵动，美国国内的赤字压力、利率转向风险，甚至川普政府主导的财税改革，似乎就这么慢慢的静了下来。那这一波台币的急升会不会只是开始？台湾的企业又该如何面对这场突如其来的汇率风暴？美国财长贝森特曾希望透过美元缓贬，以压低赤字，刺激出口。而另一边战火再起，从乌克兰到中东，避险情绪升温，全球资金开始出现不安与流动。你可能会问，这些发展是巧合还是布局？我们不知道。但在市场分析里，有一句话值得谨记：最好的金融操作是让人以为那是市场自己做的选择。在这场多线剧本交织的货币战局中，台湾企业要如何化险为夷，面对汇损、接单信心、成本压力与定价难题？2025年下半年的生存考验恐怕才正要开始。